at one point breaking out a Snickers bar, taking a hearty bite, and sincerely reacting as if it were a rare delicacy. "This is absolutely terrific," he half whispered. "Who wants to try a bite?" Our guide shook with laughter, which only made his smile broader. Somehow we managed, despite Dad's antics, to get a few geese that morning. I don't think Dad pulled the trigger once, though, preferring instead to watch and congratulate everyone else with a slap on the back. "My God," he'd shout, "what a fantastic shot! You are a magnificent waterfowl hunter." His mood was contagious, and everyone, me included, had a wonderful time. But I was still anxious, no longer because of his late arrival, but because of a contradiction I'd never been able to figure out about my father, one that had been demonstrated to me so starkly in the span of a few hours. His infectious cheer that morning stood in glaring contrast to his startling comments on the bridge earlier. "I can't wait to meet God." I knew Dad's faith was unshakable, that he went to daily mass without fail, that his great loves in life were God and my mom. But how could someone so full of life be so ready for death? Not fearful of it, but almost longing for it. How could he, quite literally, be excited to die? He was 73, but you'd never know it. He possessed the energy of a teenager. He looked half his age, and his remarkably full and active life had shown no sign of slowing down. As he had throughout so much of his life, he was getting important things done, still traveling the world, meeting prime ministers and presidents, working tirelessly and effectively to open the doors of freedom and opportunity for people who had historically been denied those things. He was constantly surrounded by his children and their growing families. He was more helplessly in love with his wife of 35 years than ever before, and everywhere he went he saw old friends and made new ones. He had his health, financial security, and at this point in his life, the freedom and ability to do whatever he chose. And yet he could stare into the sun and tell his fourth-born child that he couldn't wait to leave it all behind. I simply couldn't balance the two extremes. Why was my dad, a guy so filled with vitality, looking forward to his own death? Fast forward 22 years. My mom, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, had died a year earlier, on August 11, 2009, and my dad was engaged in a heroic but losing battle with Alzheimer's. His doctors had told my siblings and me that, at 94, Dad would probably not live more than another 12 to 18 months. When we related this to Dad's lawyer, Bob Corcoran, he reminded us that, some 30 years earlier, Dad had written a letter that he'd asked Bob to hold until his death. We thought that, given all the decisions that had to be made in a tight time frame after Mom's death, we should know whether Dad had left specific instructions about his wake, funeral, burial site, and so on. So in August 2010, Bob sent us the letter, which landed at the family home in Hyannisport like a stealth rocket amid the chaos of 5 children, 4 in-laws, 19 grandchildren, and Dad himself. Everyone was running in different directions, playing tennis and baseball and sailing. I noticed an open FedEx envelope on the counter and asked my brother Timmy whether the letter was in it. He said yes, that he'd opened it and read it, then left it for the others. I read it, quickly, and was moved by its beauty and thoughtfulness, but shortly after I finished, my kids pulled me away. I set the letter aside, determined to go back to it in more serene moments. That serenity never came. 3 months later, Dad celebrated his 95th birthday in style. We had a party for him at our house. Grandkids ran all around and took turns sitting on Dad's lap. We laughed and sang. He smiled and shouted out a few words of joy. Dad opened his presents and gobbled up his cake and ice cream. It was a great night, but he was clearly slipping. The letter crossed my mind. I have to find a quiet time to read it, I thought. The rest of November and December were jam-packed with Thanksgiving and Christmas and family visits. Work was as crazy as ever. I was running Save the Children's United States programs and on the road at least 2 days a week, pitching prospective donors, lobbying state and federal elected officials, and seeing the kids in our programs. My own kids' sporting events consumed the weekend. We were busy doing everything we could do to keep up with the Joneses. Even though Dad lived less than 3 miles from us, I didn't see him as much as I wanted to, or should have, because, well, life with 3 kids and a wife, a job requiring lots of travel, and other commitments spread me too thin.